Hello and welcome to I Want to Fight Araki, a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure close analysis podcast. I'm Thomas.
And I am his gay friend.
That's your official title now, is my gay friend.
Yes.
Alright. Well, anyway, today we are going to be covering Stardust Crusaders episodes, 30, 31, 32, and 33. We got 4 episodes today for you, folks.
Ooh, not it's 4 episodes, but not a lot of content in those 4 episodes.
So with all that said, let's get into the summary. We open with Kakyoin back in the hospital. While he is desperate to catch up with the team, the doctors tell Kakyoin that while he has a lot of healing to do, a team of Speedwagon Foundation doctors have arrived and should help him heal much quicker. Meanwhile, the Crusaders take a short break at a food stand. Joseph goes to use the bathroom, but when he leaves it, he notices a mysterious outlet on a rock. The outlet shocks him, and while surprised, he ultimately writes it off. Back at the food stand, the radio seems to be on the fritz, and for some reason, the bottle caps from the sodas attach themselves to Joseph. Because everyone has been roughed up by the past few fights, it is decided to take a rest for 2 nights to be properly rested for the battle against Dio. As the group walks to the hotel, more strange occurrences happen, such as a hammer flying towards Joseph. The next morning, as Jotaro, Polnareff, and Iggy wait for Avdol and Joseph so they can go to breakfast, Joseph wakes up facing towards the door of his room. After some more shenanigans involving both some women's skirts and silverware, Joseph realizes that he has been magnetized by an enemy stand. Joseph runs down the escalator to warn the others, but realizes that he has become attracted to the escalator himself, and worse yet, the woman in front of him has metal-tipped ropes wrapped themselves around Joseph, dragging him to the ground. Joseph asks for help from the woman, but she turns around and reveals herself as Mariah, a servant of Dio and holder of the Egyptian god stand, Bastet. Mariah runs off, and Joseph's hands begin to get crushed by the workings of the escalator, but not before Avdol is able to hit the emergency stop button and save him. Joseph tells Avdol about Mariah, and the two pursue her, eventually leading them to a woman's bathroom. They don't find Mariah, but instead a group of understandably angry women, and so jump out the window in order to escape their beating. As the two run after Mariah, they begin to run closer and closer, and Avdol admits that he accidentally touched Bastet and is now magnetized. They decide they need to separate themselves and try to use a fence, but accidentally make some suggestive poses as they struggle to save each other. Joseph and Avdol finally separate from each other, but go flying down a hill towards Mariah, who is standing on the opposite side of some train tracks. The two try to attack her, but their feet magnetize to the railroad tracks and that fall over. The train starts approaching, and Joseph tries to free them using Hermit Purple, but is unable to. The train seemingly runs them over, but it is revealed that Avdol used Magician's Red to burn a hole in the ground for them. They resume the chase, and Joseph decides to end things. He uses Hermit Purple to create a map of the town, and he and Avdol finally pincer Mariah in a circle. Unfortunately, while they were running through the town, more and more metallic objects attach themselves to the two Crusaders, and they become encumbered. Mariah, once she is surrounded, decides to cut some electrical wires via a knife throw, and while Avdol is able to burn them up using Magician's Red, Joseph is forced to use Hermit Purple, barely being able to hold back the electrocution. Just as Joseph is about to be shocked, Avdol is crushed by a car, and Mariah compliments Joseph on his looks. Joseph tries to seduce Mariah, but she refuses, and Joseph responds by releasing his hand from a sewer hole. He levitates in midair, causing Avdol to be magnetically attracted to him, and they meet in the middle, crushing Mariah. Every bone in Mariah's body is broken, and she is knocked out, freeing Joseph and Avdol from Bastet's magnetism and allowing them to meet up with the group. Jotaro and Polnareff, meanwhile, begin to search for Joseph and Avdol. As they walk around, Polnareff notices someone is following them, a man named Alessi. Alessi tries to dodge any interrogation, but when Polnareff pushes him further, Alessi unleashes his stand, Set, a living shadow that Polnareff dodges away from, but is hit a little by. Alessi runs away, and Polnareff tries to chase after him, but slowly notices that he is shrinking. Polnareff looks into a mirror and discovers that he is not only shrunk, but de-aged to that of a 7-year-old. He tries to get the attention of Jotaro, who is looking for Polnareff, but Jotaro fails to recognize the young Polnareff, and Polnareff can't remember Jotaro's name, as his mind is de-aging as well. Suddenly, Alessi ambushes Polnareff and attacks him with a gun. Polnareff is able to defend himself, but because of the de-aging, Silver Chariot is noticeably weaker, with its sword even bending. Alessi then attacks with an axe, which snaps Silver Chariot's sword with a blade, but the blade ends up hitting Alessi in the neck. This allows Polnareff to escape and run into a kindly woman who takes Polnareff back to her home. The woman draws a bath for Polnareff, but Polnareff witnesses Set sneak through the crack in the door, though he writes it off as a figment of his imagination. Just as the woman puts Polnareff in the bath, Alessi appears and begins to drown Polnareff, but Polnareff is able to escape by pooping, causing Alessi to reel back in disgust. Alessi taunts Polnareff by explaining that the woman from earlier was de-aged into a fetus by Set, and Polnareff picks up the fetus while running away from the mad stand user. He is hit a few more times by Set's de-aging ability and ducks into a dead-end room, now in the body of a 2-year-old. Alessi tears apart the room, but Polnareff reveals... Sorry, I totally lost my place there.
Bruh.
Oh, fuck.
I believe in you.
Oh, fuck. Polnareff reveals he was hiding by using a mirror in the fish tank and uses the surprise opportunity to slice up Alessi's face with Silver Chariot. Alessi runs away and Polnareff follows in hot pursuit, during which one of Polnareff's earrings fall off. Alessi jumps out a second-story window to escape Polnareff, but consequently lands in the path of Jotaro. Alessi tries to talk his way out of the situation, but Jotaro is unconvinced, so Alessi uses Set to de-age Jotaro, believing that he will be much weaker without the use of his stand. Making use of Alessi's overconfidence, Jotaro unleashes a flurry of punches on Alessi, knocking him out. When Alessi reawakens, he realizes the effects of Set disappeared and the adult versions of Polnareff and Jotaro unleash the full power of their stand, sending Alessi into the sky and hospitalizing him. The kind woman reawakens and begins frantically searching for baby Polnareff. As Polnareff and Jotaro turn to leave, the woman runs out of the house and asks Polnareff if he saw a young boy with silver hair. She then asks if she and Polnareff have met, but Polnareff feigns ignorance. The woman notices Polnareff's missing earring, but he continues to deny them ever meeting. As they walk away, Polnareff warns Jotaro not to mention anything about what happened, and Jotaro puts his arm on Polnareff's shoulder to comfort his friend. Eventually, the group meets back up at the restaurant and laments the fact that their breakfast has now turned into their lunch. In the restaurant, Joseph uses Hermit Purple's spirit camera ability to take a photo of Dio's mansion, and the camera produces a picture of Dio's manor in Cairo as the end is in sight. End of episodes.
Nobody's allowed to have lunch. What are you talking about lunch?
Breakfast is for the weak. Yeah, so... what should we talk about with these episodes? I feel like there's a lot more to talk about in the Alessi episodes.
But we gotta go in order, goddammit.
Yeah, we're gonna go in order, but
But yes.
As a prep.
I literally have honestly, I don't even wait. The only kind of thing that I have to discuss with the freaking Mariah episodes has to do with a very weak theory that is not very well supported by the events that happen in these episodes, but are, used to comedic effect in these episodes.
Well, Emily, this is I Want to Fight Araki, where weak theories are just as good as the good ones.
And also something that's just it's all funny stuff, honestly. What if we just talk about the funny stuff in that episode first?
I guess, we don't have it, because, I'm going to be honest, I can't really think of anything. Aside from, some possible, minor foreshadowing to, things we learn about in Part 4, there's, not really a lot going on in these episodes.
Alright, so then I have two things to say about these episodes, really. So we have the freaking, the lovely, it's just a nice character moment for Avdol that I just really like it. It's more funny, but it definitely, It very exemplifies his vibe, where he's just in a state of perpetual embarrassment. Joseph's like, hey, we can look under the stalls of women's rooms, but then Avdol's like, bro, I'm not a bastard. Please don't make me do this. And he's like, oh, it's fine. And I'm like, bro, I'm not the one who peeped on my mom, okay?
Yeah.
poor Avdol. That's all I'm gonna say.
Avdol just experiencing like extreme embarrassment.
And then he like apologized to the people in the bathroom, like, I'm so sorry. This poor man. I also have, there's a giant elephant in the room, that one scene that everyone loves, in which Araki twice, in JoJo, twice, that I know of, that is, from the parts that I have seen and read, has used implied gay for comedy purposes. But the funny part is that there's implied gay for comedy purposes, but there's also implied gay in general. But like, oh,
I mean,
bro,
it's probably like
this.
the most famous thing about JoJo's is like it's got sort of a homoerotic undertone.
It really does. And sometimes Araki takes the undertone and yanks it out and makes it into a freaking
just the tone
and turns it into, well, I guess the stand user makes things magnetized, and we both became magnets, and we're gonna get stuck together in very weird positions, and we're gonna know exactly what it is, and we're gonna try our very fucking best to like not be in these positions, but no, everyone's got to see it anyways. And he's like, Abdul, slide off of me, this will work. And he's like, bro, this looks weird. And he gets beat by an old lady with a cane. He's like, oh, yeah. You're cheating on me, how dare you?
I mean, do you think, I don't know, I'm gonna kind of reach here for a second, but what do you think he's saying by like having these like sort of homoerotic undertones in his work? Like,
are you talking about the serious gay or the not serious gay?
Because
they're two separate things.
I think just like the gay in general.
So I think Araki
like
is a closeted bisexual.
Okay.
That is my theory, alright? It's fucking there, alright? You don't just do that if you're not at least a little bit gay. You just don't do that. I've never read anything or watched anything by a straight male director that really had any implied gay that was done well. And here's the thing, some of the implied gay in JoJo was done well.
Yeah, I mean, sort of.
I'm gonna just cough, part 5. I can't go off until part 5 because it's very intense in part 5.
It is.
The implications are at their strongest in part 5.
No, definitely.
They're present in every part, but, you know.
I would say part 5 and part 6 probably have, like, some of the strongest...
Oh, and part 4 has a lot, too.
...implications.
But definitely part 6 has it. Like,
yeah.
I literally just read a part with, you know, I'm not even going to go off about part 6. But,
save it for part 6 discussion.
FF is gay. That's all I'm going to say. FF is a lesbian. Or asexual. I haven't decided yet. Possibly, definitely romantically attracted to women, though.
Yeah. So that's all the serious stuff I have to say about the Mariah episode.
See, here's the thing. I
just want to say, like, even though I don't have a lot of serious stuff to say, like, these are both sets of episodes we're talking about today are both, like, really good episodes, like, highly memorable, like, pretty enjoyable episodes of Stardust Crusaders. It's just, you know,
they're funny.
We're still sort of in, like, a filler stand of the week fight zone right now. And there's just not always stuff to talk about with the episodes.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting for, like, as we've said many a time before, for the first half it's interesting, and then it gets interesting in every couple of episodes or so, and it's gonna get interesting soon again.
Yeah.
Soon, please.
We're almost there.
Yeah, it sucks because I would love to go on a rant about the implied gay in JoJo, but I feel like I can only do that when we're at, like, the end, and we have everything there. And plus, this is just, like, a bit of comedy.
Right,
There's no implied gay between these two characters whatsoever.
Right, of course. It's
None
just like
at
a
all.
Visual gag.
It is indeed a gag, and it's very silly, and it's hilarious. And I saw that clip even before I started watching part 1 because it was such a meme.
Yeah.
I also love, fucking magnets, how do they work? Dilf Hunter Mariah over here, who was like, yes, you know, Joseph, you might be my type, and it sucks how it's like, yes, how many female stand users are there in part 3? I don't know, but 2 of them...
3.
Okay. 2 of them definitely... Oh, yeah, and
or
Yama.
4.
Wait. Two of them definitely at one point said, "Oh, you might be my type, but Dio is hotter." So, and that is literally what Mariah said. And I'm like, okay, Queen, go off.
It's like being on Tinder.
Poor Thomas.
I might cut that. Anyway, so yeah.
Also, imagine having all those nuts and bolts in your tits.
Yeah.
It doesn't look very comfortable, honestly. I don't know how she hid them in there, but, like, who knows?
It has produced one of the funniest, like, Joseph frames ever, where they just decide to go, like, completely off-model, and he's got, like, a giant cartoon eye and stuff. Like, it's great.
He's very confused and very intrigued and very interested. He's terrified but horny.
Anyway, should we move on to the Alessi episodes?
Yes.
Because we have a lot more to talk about with those, I think.
Here's Johnny.
Yeah. There's a few movie references in here.
Bro, can I talk about what I think might be the biggest movie reference, even though it might not actually be a reference to that movie? It just gives me the vibes of that.
Go for it.
So
Give us something to put in the thumbnail.
So Eraserhead, right?
Okay. Because of the fetus?
No, because several reasons, but yes, because of the fetus.
Polnareff has, like, similar hair as the guy in Eraserhead.
He's got the tall-ass hair that the guy in Eraserhead has for some goddamn reason. David Lynch makes a lot of great decisions for his movies. And then there's the presence of a premature baby fetus thing that is a source of fear. Well, it's not a source of fear, but, like, it's very terrifying.
I mean, it's
episode
like, it's indirect fear.
Indirect fear. It's like you're afraid for the fetus.
Right.
It's like, she's a nice person, you don't want her to die, that would really suck.
Yeah.
And it just has, like, the fear is in different places, however, it still is probably one of the most terrifying episodes where, like, it wants to make you afraid, because Alessi's terrifying.
Yeah, Alessi...
Like, goddamn.
I mean, even though...
What an awful bastard.
Alessi is, like, it's weird. Like, I mean, you definitely get, like, you know, kitty diddler vibes from Alessi.
He's a kitty murderer.
Yeah, and I think that's something we can sort of transition into talking about, is, like, I feel like there's sort of a more of an exploration on, or, like, I don't know if I want to say exploration, but just, like, Jotaro's philosophy in practice. You know, we've talked about how Jotaro is... his whole philosophy is that, you know, the strong exploiting the weak is, like, you know, like, one of the most horrible things you can do, and, like, he'll, you know, beat the tar out of you for it.
And he does.
Yeah. And Alessi kind of...
It's pleasing.
Embodies that, you know, he's very pleased, like, you know, the reason why his stand can turn people into children is because he believes that, you know, they can be the most easily exploited, and so Alessi derives a sort of joy from that exploitation.
Not a sort of joy.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And
Bastard.
So, even though these are, like, Polnareff-focused episodes, the Alessi ones, I still think it's very fitting that, like, Jotaro is, like, the one who, like, you know, knocks out Alessi and sort of allows them to finish him, because, you know, it's sort of everything that, you know, Jotaro despises in a human being, as we've said many times. The other thing I want to... So I guess I got a couple things to say. So I think these are also important. This is also, like, a minor important episode for Jotaro, because... this is where we really see, like, some camaraderie between Jotaro and other, you know, members of the Stardust Crusaders. Like, you know, he always plays it cool. He always plays it pretty close to the chest. But the part where, like, Polnareff is, like, you know, not a word about this Jotaro, and Jotaro just kind of, like, puts his hand on Polnareff and, like, smiles at him, like, there's clearly, like, an emotional, you know, connection between the two, and, like, an emotional bond that has sort of been forged by this journey. And you know, it's interesting to see, like, a softer side of Jotaro, even though it's a very minor detail in these episodes. You know, he's clearly no longer the the cold and tough guy from all the way at the beginning. He's definitely warmed to his companions throughout this journey, and it's just a little blip on Jotaro's character arc.
It's interesting. I would say that Jotaro never really. He always was kind of a softie, I would say, except not to go back to the freaking Ayn Rand quote, but I'm gonna go back to it if y'all remember that, in which basically she says, when someone is looked upon as cold and heartless, it just means that they're selective with their emotions, and they only give it to people that they think have earned it from them. And I feel like that's definitely a big part of Jotaro's character, in which, at first he didn't seem to, they didn't really vibe too much. But now, that they've, all earned each other's respect and care, he has sort of come out and, been more like, all right, we're bros now. Nice shoulder pad of solidarity here. I would say that, like, it also just seems that he's just kind of bad at being, emotionally there, because he does love his mom a lot.
Right.
He's just really, really bad at showing it, my God.
Yeah.
And it was shown, like, in the very first episode that he does very much care about his mom, except in just more of a, I don't know how to describe it. There's a word for it.
So maybe I'll modify my statement then. It's not so much like Jotaro is becoming more of a softie. It's more like he's getting better at expressing his emotions.
Yes, that seems about right.
Yeah, he doesn't react to everything with like, trying to come off as a tough guy. Like he's definitely more emotionally vulnerable in this little blip of a scene.
Yeah. Not to mention, like, back to the freaking Alessi being a bastard and picking on the weak. He literally just straight up said, "I love picking on the weak."
Yeah.
Like, he literally stated that, and Jotaro just beat the shit out of him in the end. And I love how he was a child when he beat the shit out of him.
Yeah, not even with his stand, just...
Bold of you to assume I couldn't beat the shit out of you when I was a kid.
Exactly. I mean, he's 7, like, when Set de-ages him.
Imagine 7-year-old Jotaro on the playground.
Oh, my God. Just, like, bends steel bars or something. Yep.
And he was actually probably a good kid when he was 7, because he probably saw a bunch of other smaller kids getting bullied, and he would just look at the people bullying them, and then bend the bars and be like, "Get the fuck out." Defender of the weak, a good lad indeed.
Definitely. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Why don't we did you have anything more you wanted to say on Jotaro?
No, but I have a lovely Polnareff rant I'd love to go on.
Yeah, why don't we transition into talking about Polnareff then?
All right, so this shoulder pad of solidarity came through basically when our lovely, lovely boy Polnareff was taken in by this just random lady on the street who was like, "Oh shit, there's a child bleeding.
Yeah.
Perhaps I should, like, give him some assistance, like a Band-Aid or something." And he's also very covered in dirt and blood. So she takes him back. It's a very awkward scene. I feel like it could have been made a lot stronger if it wasn't so goddamn awkward. Because you have this little child who, and this is a tiny little critique before I get into the meat, who is just like, "Ah, yes, titties."
Right.
And she's just being like the sweetest person in the world helping this kid, and it's just like, titties.
I mean, they play it for laughs, and it's sort of funny.
It's kind of funny, but like it's more awkward than it is funny.
It's more uncomfortable, yeah, than funny.
And it's such a powerful scene at the end with Polnareff, except like it could have been much stronger if like that didn't happen. There was a couple of moments beforehand where it kind of made it stronger, like when she picked him up and like put him on her back, and like he just sort of like leaned into her shoulder and said like, "Oh, she smells really nice," and it was just had this really like happy smile on his face, not like a weird smile, but like an I feel comforted kind of smile.
Like a genuine, compassionate, or genuine acceptance of human compassion, I guess.
And also, it's just something interesting I'd like to point out. I feel like this is the biggest thing about that scene is that every single time we've seen this man interact with a woman before, he always tried to get with her. I always think of the scene with freaking Nena, where he literally gives her really good advice,
Yeah.
and then afterwards says, "This is why you should be with me, not that bastard whole horse." And I'm like, well, yeah,
I mean, whole horse is a bastard.
Whole horse is a bastard, but at the same time, this isn't the time for that, sir. So he always is just trying to get that P word, you know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Grab a bucket and the mop for this wet ass P word.
Oh God.
He's always trying to get the P word. However, it's just... Wait, were you going to say something? We're going to say something about Ben Shapiro.
I wasn't going to say something about Ben Shapiro.
All right, good. We're not going to talk about
I'll let
Ben
you
Shapiro.
finish.
All right, we're not talking about Ben Shapiro on this podcast. He's not allowed. This is about JoJo, goddammit. So, for the first time, we see Polnareff, like, actively trying to be like, oh, yes, I don't know you. After she's like, wait, do I know you? After, like, he's an adult again. And he's like, no, I don't. And, you know, generally you would expect him to do the opposite. Like, ah, yes, let's date now.
Right.
But he literally just says he doesn't want to get her involved with this. And this, I feel like, proves something, that he actually does like her. I don't think he really liked any of the other girls he was with before. Like, he just thought they were hot. But in this case, he actually developed, like, even though it was a very short time, an emotional connection with her, and legitimately cares about her and does not want her to get hurt on this whack-ass journey they're on.
Right.
And he's not mercilessly flirting with her at all. He never does that, even, like, after that. He just, like, you know, and it's shown to be very painful for him to, like, turn away from her, but he has no choice.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting details here. You know, I think a lot of what we talked about in the beginning half of Stardust Crusaders is Polnareff. His arc is all about, like, having to let go of revenge, and, like, his arc now is him having to you know, live up to his sort of moniker of being a knight. You know, one of the things that's an interesting detail is that when the woman comes out of the mansion or the house or whatever at the end, she calls for the baby Polnareff as, like, her little knight. And this is like Polnareff, like, more so subscribing to the code of chivalry when it comes to knighthood, you know, because to be honest, I don't really get any sort of romantic tension between Polnareff and this woman at the end.
His face was red af, though.
His face is red, but I think it's more that, you know, I mean, like, going back to the great toxic masculinity theory.
A big theory.
This is a moment of emotional vulnerability for Polnareff. You know, this woman has seen Polnareff literally at his weakest, you know, and naked, which is like...
As a naked 5-year-old.
As a naked child, which is probably, like, the most vulnerable, like, anybody can be in their lives. And, you know, she's just kind, you know? I mean, that's it, and, like, that's what causes Polnareff to sort of have this emotional, you know, I won't say breakdown, but, like, emotional sort of anguish from the fact that, you know, he has to kind of leave. Like, it's just like, you know, I just to get real here for a second, like, I think, like, you know, especially, like, looking at the news nowadays and stuff like that, it's like, it's super distressing, and, like, you just feel like everything is, like, bad, and, like, you know, similarly, the Stardust Crusaders, like, they have to, like, fight and basically kill people, like, every day they're on this road, and they are doing it for a good reason, and the people that they do kill, you know, deserve it, but at the same time, it's like, you know, there's sort of a lack of compassion from strangers, and so just like that is what causes Polnareff to sort of feel bad at the end. Is like it's just like this pure form of, you know, niceness and compassion.
a man decides to do something nice for somebody else. What a concept. In the beginning, he was like, no, I don't do that. And then he was like, okay, maybe I'm a nice person.
The other thing is, it's like, it's very... I just thought about this. It's like another tenet of chivalry is all about, like, selflessness, you know? And that's what he does. I mean, he's literally, like a 2-year-old child by the end of the Alessi fight. And, like, he's still, like, risking his life for, like, a fetus. Like, a literal fetus. And... like, he's still fighting and still using, like, Silver Chariot and stuff like that. Like,
can we talk about baby Silver Chariot?
yes. How adorable baby Silver Chariot is.
That is adorable. Polnareff, tiny Polnareff just looks like a goblin. But, like, he's fine. He's a lovely lad. We do stand. Mm-hmm. Baby Silver Chariot, oh my god.
I must protect him.
I want a plush of that.
Yeah, seriously.
He just has a tiny little needle sword. And he's like, I got you, bro.
He goes like, poo-poo.
Bends it in half.
Yeah, exactly.
He's trying his very best.
He really is. Yeah, I don't know. That's all I had to say on Polnareff. What about you?
That's all I had to say too.
Great. All right. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any last minute things we want to discuss. I mean, oh gosh, I just had something, and I
have silly things.
Yeah, let's just go into silly stuff, and I might think of it while we're talking about it.
This will be a little baby episode. Just also, there's a lot of babies in this episode.
There's babies in this episode. It's a baby episode. It all works out. Although there's a lot of silly stuff in these episodes.
Escalera! Oh, fuck yeah!
Yeah.
In that vine they were referring to a ladder, but like an escalator is just a ladder that moves. Okay. Joseph almost got murdered by an escalator, and literally Avdol stopped the escalator. And he still was freaking out, and Avdol just looked at him like, bro, stop making a scene, please.
Yeah,
Avdol's in a perpetual state of secondhand embarrassment.
It's very much reminiscent of the lovers fight when Joseph is standing in front of the TVs, and he's just screaming, and everyone's like, yeah, like, you know, my old man's like that. Yeah, I think, there's a lot of silly stuff. There's this recurring joke with this old woman who, like, you know, Joseph accidentally, like, causes her dress to, like, you know, move around and become exposed because of the magnetism. And she's, like, she's attracted to him. And then she shows up again in the bathroom stalls when, they're trying to look for Mariah, and she's like, oh, I don't mind. And then again when Avdol and, like, it looks like Avdol and Joseph are having gay sex, and she runs up to Joseph and she's like, how dare you, you know, lead a woman on like this, and she starts hitting him. And then the Japanese Joseph voice actor goes into one of his, oh my god. And it's just, like, the perfect confluence of comedy.
Poor Avdol during that was just, like, having a mental breakdown. Imagine being stuck to some guy who's getting beat by an old lady with a cane while he's screaming, and it looks like you're sucking his dick. But you're not. It's taken completely out of context.
It's like, I feel like the Part 5 one is even more out of context because it shows up out of nowhere.
The Part 5 one is great.
It's great, though.
Naracha just like, ah!
But, I mean, this is pretty funny as well. I think, like, just all the visual gags they do. There's one part where they're running past, it's like a dog and, like, a guy stacking cans, and
all the cans
from this, like, giant pyramid come and attach themselves to Joseph.
They all just, like, acquired. There was that guy was riding a bike.
Yeah.
And then the bike just flew out from under him.
Yeah.
And he, like, it was like a Looney Tunes. He still was riding it, then he fell over.
Oh, man, it's great. just some of the things like Mariah does is just like she's just like I mean we say it a lot, but like a goblin, more or less. Like she's just like freaky in a lot of ways.
Wait, here's the funniest thing. I actually found something that we could talk about that's kind of serious.
Okay.
You want to do that?
Sure.
So there's a Joseph quote in this episode. I've run away before, but never abandoned a fight.
I remembered this. I remembered what I was going to say as well. Okay, go ahead first.
Why don't you go first? Because I just wrote down the quote. I didn't write anything to say about it.
Okay.
But this quote just definitely summarizes his entire philosophy on fighting people.
Yeah, totally. And it plays into what we talked about with Joseph in part 2, where it's like, he doesn't he'll do whatever necessary to win a fight. I think conversely, because there's a moment in the Alessi episodes where Alessi says something to the effect of I'll just play dumb and then I'll get Jotaro, then I'll kill Jotaro or whatever. And I think that's really interesting because so Joseph in part 2, we talked a lot about how he is sort of playing dumb in a lot of his fights, but here's the difference between Joseph and Alessi is that Joseph uses the strengths of his opponents against them. Cars' ego and Wamu's, raw instinct and raw, desire to kill Joseph in Mortal Kombat. He's all about putting the turntables on the Pillar Men.
Oh, how the turntables.
Whereas Alessi plays dumb so that he can, make a person weaker and exploit them. Joseph, acknowledges the strength of a person and uses that to defeat them. Whereas Alessi forces a person to become weak and exploits them that way. And it's just, it's the line that Joseph walks in part 2, but he's still a hero because of the way he goes about it. Okay, back to silly stuff.
Okay, we're done here. All right. I still love Lol Dio is hotter than you.
Yeah.
Also, bathroom disasters are Polnareff's thing.
That's a great line. I just think it's funny that they jump out of a 2-story window to escape the situation.
I mean, it was the best course of action.
They could have just run out of the hallway.
Yes, but you'd still be in. It makes more sense to exit the entire building as quickly as possible, I would say.
I wish I could just jump out of a window every time I'm made uncomfortable by a situation.
I have 2 more silly things. I have shit on the enemy.
Yes. Polnareff beats. Basically, it's the meme where it's a tiny domino and then a giant one, and it's
yes.
Baby Polnareff shits in the tub is the tiny domino, and then the giant one is Alessi getting murdered. Yeah,
shit on your enemy. That's how you win.
Whatever you have to do to survive. And that's another thing, it's Polnareff does whatever he has to do to make it out of that situation.
No shame, god damn it.
I think Alessi says adult Polnareff or an adult would never do something like this, and it's Polnareff would.
Oh yes, he would because he's a bastard. All right, the last silly thing I have is Iggy not giving a shit the entire time.
Yeah.
He sees both things happening. He's like, eh.
Yeah, he doesn't really feel the need to interject.
They can figure it out themselves.
Which is pretty funny. I mean, we talked about last episode where how active a role is Iggy playing in these fights, and I think this is a piece of evidence going against it, even though I still kind of like that theory, and I think it makes things feel a little bit more complete with regards to Iggy's character arc. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think if I have any other funny stuff. They bring back the Oingo Boingo art style for a second when Polnareff is explaining how he hid in the fish tank using like this basketball and mirror, which like, I mean, he's like, even a 2-year-old child could have thought of this plan, and I'm like, I definitely couldn't have thought of that when I was a 2-year-old child. I would have been killed.
Yeah, it was so ridiculous how he got through that. I was like, bruh, how? I don't even think it's possible to pull that off.
And like the fetus is like still alive somehow. Like he's not like, I mean, it's tiny. Like it's the size of your thumb, and like it's still alive
Somehow.
while he's like running full force away from Alessi. The other thing I'll say is I find the concept of Set like kind of cool actually. Like it's a living shadow, and like so like when Alessi brings out like his axe, like the shadow also has an axe. I just think that's like it's just a cool idea. And there's some brilliant attention to detail in Heritage of the Future, which is the Stardust Crusaders fighting game where you play as Alessi, and they made unique sprites for like baby versions of all the characters. And if you use Set against old Joseph, he turns into Part 2 Joseph, as opposed to turning into a baby, which I think is a pretty cool attention to detail.
Nice. It's good.
I mean, that's more of a fun fact, not really silly or serious.
Fun
but...
fact. We started playing one of the JoJo fighting games, and I am having a great time with it.
Yes, All-Star Battle.
I'm maining Hermes. Yeah.
Yeah, we might do some videos on All-Star Battle.
Oh, hell yeah, we're going to.
Or just the rest of the JoJo video games, because there's actually quite a few. But
we're gonna become a gaming channel.
we still got to plan those out. But yeah, is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Em?
I have nothing.
Okay. Well, with all that said, if you want to keep up with all the silly / semi-serious stuff that I do, you can follow me at Thomas M. Brickman on Twitter. Post-game content is officially coming back. We are coming back on the radio station WECB.FM. Me and Kevin are also probably going to be doing, we might do YouTube videos / Twitch streams like in the middle or just as supplementary content, but it depends on our schedules. It's
privileged bastards get on a radio station.
It's not going to be a defined thing, but yeah, if you want to keep up with all the news relating to that, you can follow at PostgameCon. That's at PostgameCon. And if you want to see all the archived episodes of Postgame content, just look up Postgame content on YouTube. And Emily, where can people find you and your social media?
Bro, I really do be on Twitter, though, at Emily Winkles. Yeah.
And,
do with that information what you will.
And if you want to keep up with all the news, memes, hilarity that ensues from this podcast when we're not actually recording it, you can keep up with the show's social media. It's at iwanttofightar1 on Twitter, and I Want to Fight Araki on Instagram. And with all that said, we'll see you guys next time when we cover Stardust Crusaders, episodes 34, 35, 36, and 37. We'll see you guys then.